Okay, so how do you handle stress at work?
How do I handle stress at work? Well, I often handle it well. What I mean by that is that I have spent a lot of time in my life working on making sure that I can manage my own emotions and to even in stressful situations, not to react, but to have little mental exercises that I do to calm myself down. And often it's like right now it's been I've been doing it so long that it's basically a habit. But there are other things as well too in terms of the practical way that I work with my team and actually with clients as well. Um, but I know that I'm kind of unusual because I actually learned how to meditate when I was like 12 years old or something like that. And so for me, stress has never been that big an issue. Once in a while, but not a big issue.
Yeah, so like just like what you said earlier, you said you have a mindful activity or something like that. Can you share to us further what that is so that people will know and maybe adapt in their workplace?
Sure. So I read this book. It's a kind of weird book called Super Learning. I was very interested in being a genius and learning how to have an amazing memory and stuff like that. And most of the things in the book I did not do. I wasn't very good at putting them into practice, but there was one thing that I did do, which was a very simple meditation where you imagine that you're on a 6-story building at the top and each floor has a different color, starting with red and then going down each floor through the colors of the rainbow. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then going underground to the color ultraviolet. And so the you do this visualization where you imagine yourself walking around each floor and then getting to the stairway, and the stairways are this beautiful shiny silver, and then you go to the next floor, and you just sort of imagining that as you go each floor down, you're getting more and more and more relaxed. So I practiced this over and over and over again. And now I don't have to even visualize it anymore. I say, okay, I need to be relaxed, and then I am. But it took a lot of practice at first, and it's very simple though. It takes 3 or 4 minutes to visualize. Maybe at first it's a little longer, but it's really effective at getting relaxed. Now, being relaxed is not the same thing as being unstressed, though. So there's other things too, but that was the very first thing that I learned about.
Great. Okay, thank you. Next question. With regards to that, so as a CEO, do you experience burnouts?
I have a couple of times, yes. Um, the the last time was a few years ago. We had gone through a lot of growth, some quick hiring, and I was feeling quite frustrated with how we were working. And so part of the problem is that I'm what they call an artist. I love perfection in work. And so when people make mistakes, which even I do, but when people make mistakes, it's one of the things that kind of triggers me a little bit. That's the part that's extra special hard for me. And so I kind of imagine that of course he's very different in many ways, but I kind of imagine that I'm a little bit like Steve Jobs, who is famous for getting really upset if there was mistakes or imperfections. And that's what goes on inside of me sometimes. So, a few years ago, we had brought on a lot of new people all of a sudden, and there was a lot of mistakes being made. And I was also very busy because of all the new people and because of the client work and so forth. And so I was feeling quite overwhelmed. And I actually took 4 months off. And I did a sabbatical, a 4-month sabbatical. And that was really valuable for me. I took some math classes at university, just completely different. I was still involved a little bit. I would come to a meeting once in a while or something like that, but mostly I was just doing my own thing for a few months. And so now I try and take more regular short vacations.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just a day, sometimes it's a week, but doing it more often and more regularly really helps a lot.
One of the things that they say in research is one of the ways to cope with burnouts is to actually have that hobby, have a hobby or do something that you love. So is there a specific hobby that you do? What can you share about it?
Yeah, I've got too many hobbies, maybe. They sometimes cause me a little bit of stress themselves. But right now, my main hobby outside of work is cycling. I have an indoor cycling setup, and I also, when the weather is nice, I'll go outdoors as well. And I'm doing that for fitness purposes partly, but I really love it. It's not something that I don't like. It's not like going to the gym for me. Going to the gym for me is like miserable. I hate it. Um, but getting on a nice bicycle, going fast, or going slow and relaxed, doesn't matter, but just doing that for whatever reason is something that I really love. But throughout my life, I've had lots of other hobbies. Math. I still hope to go back to university to take some more math classes at some point. And I also play with Lego. Lego is one of those things that I've done for most of my life. And I have now a pretty big Lego collection.
I want to see it. All right, the next one is going to be about how you deal with your team. So, how do you deal with the signs of burnout in your team?
Well, as much as possible, the number one thing that I want to do when possible is give people space and time to recover. So if a colleague is feeling really burnt out and they need to take time off, we have a kind of take what you need vacation policy for our employees. And of course, we also work with contractors, and we try and be flexible as much as we can there as well. The thing is that I know that if people are burnt out, they're not going to be effective anyway. However, like with any business, when we're doing work with clients, sometimes we just have to push through and get stuff done. And so then what I really think is powerful actually is encouraging us to think about how much we love our clients, how we care about the people that we're working for. And I have this kind of little saying that I have in my mind, which is that where there's love, there's always energy. If you're in love with someone, it doesn't matter what they ask you to do. You're just going to do it. You're totally there for them, right? And so I think that this is something that's really important, is for us to work with clients that we want to help, that we feel at least sort of an inkling that, oh, this would be really valuable for our clients. We're going to make a difference in their lives. And so sometimes if we have urgent client work that we have to do, which comes up, yeah, we push through, and we can do that because we really love our clients.
Great. Of their love questions. Next one. How do you become a better or a great leader?
Well, this is something that is a very complicated question, because it also depends on what you mean by being a great leader. And so does it mean having a really effective business that is producing amazing results and your shareholders are really happy? Or is it that your employees are happy, or that the community around you is happy? And I think that a great leader tries to take all of those things into account, but I don't think it's possible to always do that perfectly. So another aspect of being a great leader is to be continuously learning and improving. These are things that most people know about and hear about, but they're sometimes hard to do. Like if you make a mistake as a leader, sometimes it affects people's lives pretty badly. And I know that that's happened with me in the past. I've made mistakes as a leader, and it's caused economic hardship for people that I employ, for example, and that's always very, very frustrating. And so I think part of it is about a kind of humility. So to be a leader, I think you have to have a strong vision. You have to be aspiring to great things. You need to be trying to make a huge contribution to the world, and to basically create this environment that's high performance. And so at the same time, though, you have to be open to feedback, and some of that feedback is going to be very negative and not necessarily given to you in a way that makes it easy, right? Like it could be someone swearing at you, for example, but in behind that is feedback, and to be calm and to be able to listen to negative feedback requires humility. I'm not saying that I'm perfectly humble. I think that I'm really great in some ways, and that's not humble. But the one thing that I am good at is I am good at listening to feedback and then trying very hard to not blame the person giving me the feedback, but instead to try and figure out what I can do to take responsibility to improve a situation.
It's similar to the question. It's one of the top questions asked. How do you improve employee performance?
Improving employee performance. Well, this is the $1 trillion question for every organization. So first of all, I have some things that I like to focus on. There's lots of things that you can do, but one of the very first and perhaps most important in especially mid-size and large organizations is to realize that there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of procedures and policies and inefficiencies in the way that people work. And it's well-meaning. It's developed over time, kind of naturally in many cases. Sometimes it comes from government regulations. Sometimes it comes from, trying to solve mistakes in the past. But having a view of the way that you work as looking for inefficiency. So what are some examples? Like if you're building something and there's a lot of defects, for example, typically it's much more cost effective and time effective to prevent defects in the first place. So there's that old thing that says measure twice, cut once. It saves you time, it saves you material costs, and the same is true about most types of work. Now, sometimes you have to do experiments, which is another type of efficiency, right? Like if you know that there's alternatives, 2, 3, 4, 5 alternative ways that you could do something, rather than choosing one and going full force down that one path, do some experiments first. Again, it's kind of like measure twice with your experiments, or 3 times or 4 times or whatever, and then choose the path, cut once. And in the long run, it saves a lot of time. But what happens in a lot of organizations is that everyone's feeling really a lot of urgency. So sometimes it's hard to step back and do that. So another thing that's very common is people spending a lot of time in useless meetings. And this is, again, something that's actually kind of easy to fix mentally, but behaviorally, it's not always easy. People want to be included. People feel like if they're not at a meeting, they might miss something important, which is true, actually. So you have to replace meetings with other more efficient ways of creating transparency and visibility. And that's typically with collaboration tools. In our team, we use Miro. It's absolutely fantastic. We highly recommend it, but it's not the only option out there. But you create transparency through the use of collaboration tools. And then one last thing for improving performance that's kind of related to efficiency is about communication in general. So the more that people communicate as they're doing work, typically the better the results are. So if you have a team of people, for example, and everyone is just working on their own, often that's very inefficient because people make assumptions, they're wrong, they go back, they talk to someone else, and then they have to do a lot of rework. So even though it's a little bit counterintuitive, often having people working together on a single task is better than splitting up the work and having people working simultaneously on different tasks. And that's the same with, like, whether we're talking about detailed technical tasks or whether we're talking about big projects, right? Like having one project at a time is much more efficient than trying to do 10 projects all in little bits simultaneously. And that goes to task switching and focus and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Okay. Here's another one. Is it necessary to hide your stress or emotions from your team?
Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. Sometimes it's advisable, you know, because people have different ways of expressing stress. And so if you're a person who's not able to express your stress safely for other people, like if you start yelling at people and calling them names and stuff like that, yeah, hide your stress, please. Don't take that out on other people, right? But it is important to create an environment where people can feel like they can share their vulnerabilities and to share the challenges and ask for help. So that's the difference, right? If you're stressed, yes, share it, but share it by asking for help. Don't share it by blaming people and yelling at people, right? And so that's the difference.
Right. How did you manage a problem with employees?
I've oh boy, like I think anyone who has been a manager, I've had to do a lot of learning. There's been some good things that I've done in the past, and there's some bad things I've done in the past. And again, it depends on the kind of problem. You know, just to give a very trivial example, we had an employee who was embezzling from us, and so we fired her. And that's all you can do. It's really straightforward. There's no other option. But I think what you're talking about is other kinds of problems where, you know, maybe people need some support to learn something. They're trying their best. Maybe they're not working as effectively as they can. And so I think there's a combination of things. But a lot of it has to do with, you know, what is the level of patience that you can have with people, and how can you create the systems to support them, the network of people within the organization to support them. You know, one person we worked with, this is quite a long time ago now, but He was brought on board as a coach and trainer and consultant. He had a good background for it, but when he worked with clients, basically they hated him. He was really bad at it. And so, we gave him a few chances. We tried coaching him, but nothing really changed. And so eventually we stopped working with him. And I really hope that he's been able to improve, but the reality is that you can't always tolerate, bad performance. So there's a balancing act, and that relates also to the rest of the team, because your team needs to know that you hold people to a standard, and that even though you can be patient, that if things are really not working, that probably a person isn't in the right role, doesn't have the right responsibilities, and should move on to do something different. I think that's pretty basic for a lot of managers. The challenge is, of course, if you really like the people you're working with, it can be sometimes quite stressful and painful to have those kinds of conversations. And I know that's been the case for me. I've never had a conversation like that where it wasn't extremely painful. And I so I don't know what else I can say about that, other than I wish that there was some magic way to never hire a bad employee, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case. And people's lives change too. So they might be in a good fit for a while, but then something in their life changes, and then it's no longer a good fit. And so, yeah.
My last question, what is your advice to managers and to people about how they are going to deal with stress, may it be in their workplace or in their personal lives?
Yeah, so a lot of stress in the workplace comes from some sort of conflict. So, our business, we help managers who are experiencing stress because their executives are asking a lot and their teams don't have the capacity, right? So that's a common source of stress. There's others as well, but that's very common. So there's a conflict there, right? Like the executives want lots done, the staff don't have the capacity to do lots, and the manager is caught in the middle. So the thing to dealing with stress then is to find out where the conflict is, and to be as specific as possible. Is it a conflict in terms of just expectations, and if you resolve that, then things are going to be okay? Or is it a conflict in terms of culture, that the way people are communicating their expectations is done poorly, but the expectations are fine, it's just they're not communicated well? But one way or another, a big part of it is relieving conflict. So we do coaching and training and assessments and stuff like that with organizations to help them find the sources of conflict and misalignment, and resolve those things in order to reduce stress. Like we were talking about earlier, a lot of times it's just a matter of improving the efficiency and performance of your teams, and all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of new capacity to get work done, and suddenly there's no stress anymore. We've seen this in many of our clients, that when a team gets very well aligned, when they get more efficient, when they get more focused, that actually work gets done extremely effectively and quickly. And so we've had cases where literally a team will run out of work. They just finish all the work. And so now you've got a different problem even, which is the stress of worrying about whether or not you're going to get laid off. Oh, there's nothing for me to do anymore. Were we too good? Uh-oh, are we going to get laid off? And so this is again where management and leadership comes in to say, no, we recognize that everyone's done a great job here. Let's keep doing that, and we're investing in the future now with trying to figure out how to do innovation, how to stay ahead of our competition and disrupt the marketplace. But your first step is to optimize your existing environment. I'll give you one really concrete example. We worked quite a few years ago with a small company in Toronto that was thinking about tripling the size of their technology department. They had about 50 people. They wanted to grow it to 150 people. And they wanted to do that because they weren't getting stuff done fast enough. And there was a lot of competition in their space with other organizations moving more quickly. So we were working with the VP of technology. And basically what we did is we proposed to him, look, we can help you make your existing staff so much more productive that you don't have to hire any new people. And we showed exactly how. There was some things in terms of techniques that the teams were using. There was stuff in terms of how their work environment was set up, the tools they were using, collaboration skills, how they were planning and organizing the work. There's all these different categories. And over the course of about 10 months, we were able to dramatically improve the productivity of those teams, and they didn't have to do those hires. They were able to avoid spending literally $10 million a year because they got some good coaching and training and support. And this is very common. We find in a lot of organizations, there's just so much inefficiency, and everyone thinks, oh, we need to hire more people. No. Wait. Let's solve the problem of efficiency and effectiveness and productivity and quality first. And then if you still need more capacity, then yeah, okay. But it's very common that we find you don't need to do that. You don't need to hire more people. That just adds more stress, actually. Hiring more people is adding stress.
Hit the like button, comment, and share, and visit berteig.com for more.